Some of the deepest pain we carry is never seen by the world because it lives quietly inside our own minds. We replay moments that are already gone. We argue with ghosts that no longer speak, and we punish ourselves for wounds we did not choose. While life moves forward, our thoughts keep us trapped in yesterday's shadows. Tonight, I invite you to pause, not to fix everything, not to pretend strength, but to listen. Because freedom does not always come from changing the world around us. Sometimes it begins when we stop hurting ourselves in the place we call our thoughts. Your mind is a storyteller, and every day it sits beside you, whispering narratives about who you are, what you deserve, and what your future might hold. Some of these stories are gentle and true, but many are shaped by fear, memory, and old wounds. They sound convincing because they are familiar, not because they are accurate. A thought can repeat itself for years and still be false. Just because your mind says something does not mean it speaks the truth. Wisdom begins when you learn to listen without immediately believing. So many people suffer not because of what is happening, but because of what they keep telling themselves about what is happening. The mind replays failures with perfect clarity, but edits out moments of courage. It magnifies mistakes until they feel like identities. It turns temporary pain into lifelong sentences. Yet thoughts are not facts. They are passing visitors. Some arrive to warn you, some to teach you, and some simply to test your strength. You are allowed to let them pass without inviting them to unpack their bags. Fear has a way of dressing itself as realism. It tells you that you are being practical when you expect the worst, that you are protecting yourself when you doubt your worth. But fear does not protect, it confines. It builds walls inside your own head and then convinces you the walls are safety. Healing begins when you question the stories that keep you small. Ask yourself whether the voice inside you is helping you grow or keeping you hidden. Not every voice deserves authority over your life. There is a quiet power in choosing gentler thoughts, especially when harsh ones feel easier. Choosing healing does not mean denying pain. It means refusing to let pain define you. You can acknowledge what hurt you without allowing it to narrate your future. You can remember without reliving. You can learn without self-punishment. The mind can be trained slowly and patiently to tell stories that leave room for hope instead of fear. When you change the story you tell yourself, you change the way you walk into the world. Your shoulders soften, your breath deepens, your heart feels less guarded. You begin to act not from survival, but from possibility. This is not weakness, it is courage. It takes bravery to release familiar suffering and step into unfamiliar peace. It takes strength to believe a kinder story when pain has been loud for so long. Freedom does not arrive all at once. It comes in moments. When you catch a cruel thought and replace it with a compassionate one. When you forgive yourself for being human. When you choose rest over punishment. Each moment is a sentence in a new story. And over time, those sentences become a life that feels lighter, truer, and more your own. You were never meant to suffer in your own mind. You were meant to live there with grace. Your mind is a storyteller, and every day it sits beside you, whispering narratives about who you are, what you deserve, and what your future might hold. Some of these stories are gentle and true, but many are shaped by fear, memory, and old wounds. They sound convincing because they are familiar, not because they are accurate. A thought can repeat itself for years and still be false. Just because your mind says something does not mean it speaks the truth. Wisdom begins when you learn to listen without immediately believing. So many people suffer not because of what is happening, but because of what they keep telling themselves about what is happening. The mind replays failures with perfect clarity, but edits out moments of courage. It magnifies mistakes until they feel like identities. It turns temporary pain into lifelong sentences. Yet thoughts are not facts. They are passing visitors. Some arrive to warn you, some to teach you, and some simply to test your strength. You are allowed to let them pass without inviting them to unpack their bags. Fear has a way of dressing itself as realism. It tells you that you are being practical when you expect the worst, that you are protecting yourself when you doubt your worth. But fear does not protect, it confines. It builds walls inside your own head and then convinces you the walls are safety. Healing begins when you question the stories that keep you small. Ask yourself whether the voice inside you is helping you grow or keeping you hidden. Not every voice deserves authority over your life. There is a quiet power in choosing gentler thoughts, especially when harsh ones feel easier. Choosing healing does not mean denying pain. It means refusing to let pain define you. You can acknowledge what hurt you without allowing it to narrate your future. You can remember without reliving. You can learn without self-punishment. The mind can be trained slowly and patiently to tell stories that leave room for hope instead of fear. When you change the story you tell yourself, you change the way you walk into the world. Your shoulders soften, your breath deepens, your heart feels less guarded. You begin to act not from survival, but from possibility. This is not weakness, it is courage. It takes bravery to release familiar suffering and step into unfamiliar peace. It takes strength to believe a kinder story when pain has been loud for so long. Freedom does not arrive all at once. It comes in moments, when you catch a cruel thought and replace it with a compassionate one, when you forgive yourself for being human, when you choose rest over punishment. Each moment is a sentence in a new story, and over time, those sentences become a life that feels lighter, truer, and more your own. You were never meant to suffer in your own mind. You were meant to live there with grace. There are moments when life feels like it has fallen apart, when nothing makes sense, and you begin to question yourself instead of the situation. In those moments, the mind is quick to say something is wrong with you. It calls confusion a flaw and uncertainty a failure. But confusion is not proof of brokenness. It is evidence of movement. It means something old is loosening its grip and something new is trying to take shape. Becoming is rarely comfortable. It often feels like standing in the middle of a storm without clear direction, trusting that the wind is carrying you somewhere necessary. Growth does not announce itself with clarity at first. It often arrives disguised as doubt, restlessness, or emotional fatigue. You may feel lost not because you are failing, but because you have outgrown who you used to be. The mind resists this stage because it prefers certainty, even painful certainty, over unfamiliar possibility. So it tells you to go back, to settle, to stop questioning. But becoming asks you to stay present in the uncertainty and trust that clarity will come in its own time. When you believe you are broken, you treat yourself harshly, you rush your healing, you compare your progress to others, you shame yourself for not being over it yet. But when you understand that you are becoming, patience replaces punishment. You begin to see that healing is not a straight line, and strength is not always loud. Sometimes strength looks like resting. Sometimes it looks like admitting you don't have answers yet. Sometimes it looks like simply continuing, even when confidence is quiet. The mind often turns confusion into self-judgment. It asks, why am I still here? Why am I struggling when others seem fine? But everyone is becoming something, even if their journey looks calm from the outside. Growth happens privately. It happens in late nights, in silent decisions, in moments when you choose not to give up on yourself. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are unfolding. Becoming also requires letting go of who you thought you had to be. The version of yourself that survived no longer has to lead your life forever. You can thank that version for its strength and still choose something softer, freer, and more aligned. Confusion is often the space between identities, the old self releasing control and the new self learning how to breathe. That space may feel empty, but it is fertile. Something is growing there. If you listen closely, you'll notice that even in confusion, there is movement. You are learning what no longer fits. You are discovering boundaries. You are becoming more honest with yourself. These are not signs of weakness, they are signs of awakening. The mind may call this phase messy, but the soul recognizes it as necessary. One day, clarity will arrive quietly. It won't announce itself as a miracle. It will feel like ease, like understanding why you had to walk through uncertainty to arrive at truth. Until then, be gentle with yourself. You are not broken, you are in motion. And becoming, though uncomfortable, is one of the most powerful things you will ever do. The past has a way of following us, not because it is alive, but because we keep breathing life into it. We return to old moments again and again, touching them like scars to remind ourselves they are still there. We replay what we should have said, who we should have been, how things could have turned out differently. But the past cannot change its answers, no matter how many times we question it. It has already done its work. What remains is not meant to cage you, but to guide you. Every experience you lived through carried a lesson, even the ones that hurt deeply. Some taught you resilience, some taught you boundaries, some taught you what you will never accept again. The pain was not pointless, but it was never meant to be permanent. When you turn the past into a prison, you miss its true purpose. You keep yourself locked inside moments that were only meant to pass through you. Learning requires reflection, not residence. There is a difference between honoring where you came from and being trapped by it. Honoring means you acknowledge your journey with honesty and compassion. Being trapped means you punish yourself for not knowing then what you know now. You cannot hold your former self to the standards of your present wisdom. Growth demands forgiveness, especially toward the person you used to be. That version of you did the best it could with the tools it had. Gratitude is not always about joy, sometimes it is about survival. You can thank the past not because it was kind, but because you endured it, because it shaped your strength, your empathy, your awareness. Gratitude does not excuse harm, nor does it deny pain. It simply allows you to release the weight of bitterness that keeps you tied to yesterday. When you thank the lesson, you loosen the chain. Walking forward without chains does not mean forgetting. It means remembering without reliving. It means allowing memories to exist without letting them steer your direction. You are allowed to move toward new possibilities, even if the past feels unfinished. Closure is not always something the past gives you. Sometimes it is something you choose. You close the door not because everything makes sense, but because you are ready to live. The mind often confuses familiarity with safety. It clings to the past because it knows it well, even when it hurts. The future feels uncertain, so the mind would rather stay in known pain than risk unknown peace. But growth asks you to step forward anyway. It asks you to trust that you are wiser now, stronger now, more capable of choosing differently. Each step you take away from the past is an act of courage. You are not betraying your story by moving on. You are completing it. Life is not asking you to carry every chapter forever. Some chapters are meant to end so new ones can begin. The past has already taught you what it came to teach. Now it is time to thank it, release it, and walk freely into what is waiting for you. Your thoughts were never meant to be a courtroom where you are both the accused and the judge. Yet so many mornings begin with silent trials, listing failures, replaying regrets, predicting worst outcomes before the day has even asked anything of you. The mind can be sharp and powerful, but when left unchecked, it turns that power inward. It convinces you that worry is responsibility and self-criticism is discipline. But a thought that weakens you is not wisdom, it is weight. You were born to rise, not to rehearse every possible mistake. Rising does not mean never falling. It means refusing to stay on the ground mentally long after the fall has passed. When your thoughts constantly drag you backward or downward, they stop serving you. They stop helping you grow and start punishing you for being human. A serving thought supports action, learning, and hope. A sentencing thought only repeats judgment without offering a path forward. The mind often believes that worry prepares you. It tells you that if you imagine every negative outcome, you will somehow be safe from disappointment. But worry does not protect the future. It steals the present. It drains energy that could have been used to build, to heal, to try again. You cannot rise while rehearsing fear. You cannot move freely while carrying imagined burdens that have not yet arrived. Serving thoughts are different. They ask better questions. Instead of, what if I fail? They ask, what can I learn? Instead of, I'm not enough, they ask, what do I need right now? These thoughts do not deny reality. They shape it. They allow you to respond instead of react. They remind you that progress is made through clarity, not cruelty. Breaking the habit of self-sentencing takes patience. The mind has practiced judgment for years, sometimes decades. It will not change overnight. But every time you notice a thought that diminishes you and choose not to follow it, you weaken its authority. Awareness becomes interruption. Compassion becomes resistance. Slowly, the inner voice begins to change, not because life became easier, but because you became kinder to yourself. Rising also requires allowing yourself to live unfinished. You do not need to have everything figured out to move forward. You do not need certainty to begin. Many people sentence themselves to stillness because they are waiting to feel ready. But readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. You rise by moving anyway, by trusting that clarity will meet you along the way. When your thoughts serve you, your energy shifts. You spend less time proving yourself and more time expressing yourself. Less time defending your worth and more time building your life. You stop asking permission to exist fully. You stop shrinking to avoid judgment, especially your own. You were never born to be at war with your mind. It was meant to be your ally, your guide, your tool for creation. When you release thoughts that sentence you and choose ones that support you, you reclaim your inner freedom. And from that freedom, rising becomes natural. Not forced, not rushed, but steady and true. There is a voice that rises in quiet moments, often when you are tired or alone, and it speaks with certainty about your limits. It tells you that you are behind, that you should be more by now, that others are stronger, braver, more deserving. It sounds convincing because it has been speaking for a long time. But that voice has never walked the full distance you have traveled. It has never carried your pain, your effort, your survival. It speaks from fear, not from truth. That voice was shaped by moments when you were doubted, overlooked, or made to feel small. Sometimes it borrowed words from people who did not know how to love you well. Sometimes it grew from comparisons you never asked for. Over time, it learned your vulnerabilities and used them against you. But familiarity does not make it wise. Just because a thought feels automatic does not mean it is accurate. That voice learned how to speak loudly, but it never learned who you truly are. Strength is not always visible, especially to a voice that only measures success in outcomes. Your strength has lived in endurance, in getting up on days when hope felt thin. It has lived in choosing kindness when bitterness would have been easier. It has lived in continuing even when no one was watching, applauding, or believing. The voice that calls you not enough does not recognize this kind of strength because it only values perfection, not perseverance. Silencing that voice does not mean fighting it with anger. It means refusing to let it lead. You do not have to destroy it. You only have to stop obeying it. When it tells you that you cannot, pause. Ask yourself whether this thought is helping you grow or keeping you afraid. Most often, it is trying to keep you safe by keeping you still. But stillness born from fear is not safety, it is surrender. Replacing that voice takes practice. You begin by speaking to yourself with honesty instead of harshness. You acknowledge where you are without shaming yourself for it. You remind yourself of what you have already survived. You speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love who is trying their best. At first, it may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, but compassion is a skill, and skills grow with use. There will be days when the old voice returns louder than before. That does not mean you are failing, it means you are changing. Resistance often appears when growth is near. Each time you choose not to believe the lie of inadequacy, you weaken its grip. Each time you act despite it, you prove it wrong without argument. You were never meant to be enough by comparison or perfection. You are enough because you are here, becoming, learning, evolving. The voice that doubts you has never known your full story. It has never seen the quiet courage it took to keep going. You know that story, and that knowledge, steady, patient, and true, is the voice worth listening to. For so long, many of us have believed that being hard on ourselves is the same as being strong. We push, criticize, and shame ourselves forward, thinking kindness will make us weak or complacent. We speak to ourselves in ways we would never speak to another human being. We call it motivation, discipline, realism. But inside, something tightens. The body carries tension. The spirit grows tired. Fighting yourself may look like strength, but it slowly becomes exhaustion. Healing begins quietly, almost unnoticed, the moment you decide to stop being your own enemy. It begins when you recognize that the war inside you has taken more than it has ever given back. You do not heal by conquering yourself. You heal by understanding yourself, by listening instead of accusing, by asking what hurts instead of demanding why you are not better yet. This shift is subtle, but it is powerful. It changes the direction of your inner life. Compassion toward your own soul is not indulgence, it is honesty. It means admitting that you have been carrying more than anyone sees. It means acknowledging that survival alone required courage. Compassion does not erase responsibility. It creates space for growth. When you stop fighting yourself, your energy is no longer wasted on inner conflict. It becomes available for healing, learning, and rebuilding. Fighting yourself often looks like resisting your emotions. You tell yourself you should not feel tired, sad, confused, or afraid. You rush your pain, try to outgrow it before it has been understood. But emotions do not disappear when ignored. They wait. Compassion invites them to speak without letting them take control. It says, "I see you," instead of "you shouldn't be here." That recognition alone can soften what once felt overwhelming. Being compassionate with yourself also means releasing unrealistic expectations. It means accepting that healing does not follow a schedule and strength does not always look productive. Some days, strength looks like rest. Some days it looks like asking for help. Some days it looks like doing less without calling yourself lazy or broken. When you stop fighting your limitations, you begin to work with them instead of against them. This kind of compassion requires courage because it goes against what many of us were taught. We were taught to earn rest, to prove worth, to justify softness. Choosing compassion means unlearning those rules. It means trusting that you are allowed to care for yourself without permission. It means believing that kindness will not make you weak, but whole. There will be moments when old habits return, when you catch yourself criticizing or pushing too hard again. That does not undo your healing. It simply shows you where compassion is still needed. Each time you notice and choose gentleness instead, you strengthen a new way of being. Progress is not the absence of struggle. It is the willingness to meet struggle with care. When you stop fighting yourself, your inner world becomes safer, and from safety, healing grows naturally. You begin to move through life with less resistance and more grace. You breathe easier. You trust yourself more. Compassion becomes not just something you practice, but something you live. And in that space, your soul finally has room to heal. Peace is often treated like a prize that must be earned, something waiting at the end of a flawless life. We tell ourselves we will rest when everything is fixed, when we are healed, successful, certain, complete. Until then, we believe we must carry tension as proof that we care, that we are trying hard enough. But peace, was never meant to be postponed. It is not a finish line you cross after suffering enough. It is something you are allowed to touch even while life is unfinished. Life, in its truest form, is imperfect by design. There will always be unanswered questions, unresolved moments, and plans that do not unfold as expected. If peace required perfection, no one would ever experience it. Waiting for the right conditions only keeps the mind restless and the heart tight. Peace does not mean everything is resolved. It means you stop demanding that everything be resolved before you allow yourself to breathe. Many people feel guilty choosing peace, while their life still feels messy. They believe calm means avoidance or denial. But peace is not pretending pain does not exist. It is choosing not to let pain control every thought. You can acknowledge what is broken without breaking yourself further. You can carry responsibility without carrying constant tension. Peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the absence of self-punishment during struggle. The mind often argues that peace will make you complacent, that without pressure you will stop growing. But growth does not come from constant inner pressure. It comes from clarity. A calm mind sees more clearly than an exhausted one. When you allow yourself peace, you make better decisions. You respond instead of react. You move forward with intention instead of fear. Peace does not stop progress. It strengthens it. You deserve moments of calm even while healing is ongoing. You deserve rest even if your life is still uncertain. You deserve ease even if your past was heavy. These are not rewards for good behavior. They are necessities for survival. A spirit that never rests eventually forgets how to hope. Allowing peace is not giving up, it is refueling. Sometimes peace arrives quietly in small choices. Choosing not to overthink a conversation, letting go of an argument you can't win in your head, allowing yourself to enjoy a moment without wondering how long it will last. These moments may seem small, but they change the rhythm of your inner world. They remind you that life is happening now, not only after everything improves. You are allowed to set peace as a boundary. You are allowed to step back from what drains you, even if you cannot fix it yet. You are allowed to say, "This matters, but it does not get to consume me." Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is wise. A peaceful mind is not detached from life, it is grounded in it. Peace is your right because you are human, not because you are perfect. You do not have to earn it through suffering. You are allowed to hold peace and imperfection at the same time. And when you stop delaying peace, life does not suddenly become flawless, but it becomes lighter, kinder, and more livable. The thoughts we entertain most often are like seeds planted in the soil of our minds. Some seeds grow into flowers, some into weeds, but all grow if nourished. When you repeatedly dwell on doubt, fear, or failure, you water those weeds. They take root and spread, and before you know it, your mind becomes a garden overgrown with hesitation and sorrow. But when you plant thoughts of courage, possibility, and self-worth, they grow too. They may start small, fragile even, but with attention and patience, they will flourish into a life you recognize as yours. Every day, the mind offers choices about which thoughts to feed. It asks silently, will I focus on the mistakes, or will I notice the moments of effort? Will I believe the voice that says I am unworthy, or will I listen to the one that whispers I am enough? Each thought you choose becomes part of who you are. Each repetition strengthens that thought's influence, shaping your habits, your decisions, your responses, and ultimately, your destiny. You may not notice it immediately, but over time, the pattern is undeniable. The danger lies in believing that negative thoughts are inevitable or permanent. They are not truths, they are habits. The mind can be trained to return to hope instead of fear, to curiosity instead of judgment, to possibility instead of limitation. Every time you interrupt a thought that diminishes you and replace it with one that elevates you, you reclaim a piece of your life. You tell your mind that you are not a prisoner of its old stories, but a gardener of new ones. Choosing thoughts that lift you does not mean ignoring reality. It does not require pretending that challenges do not exist. It means deciding which perspectives will guide your actions instead of allowing the mind to dictate them blindly. You may acknowledge fear while acting in spite of it. You may recognize doubt while trusting in your own strength. You may feel uncertainty while still moving forward with faith in your ability to navigate it. Lifting thoughts are not about denying struggle. They are about refusing to let struggle define you. Your inner dialogue becomes the soundtrack of your life. If it is harsh and critical, the world will echo that tone back to you. If it is gentle and encouraging, your experience shifts to match it. The mind takes cues from repetition. What is repeated becomes familiar, and what is familiar shapes perception. By intentionally repeating thoughts of resilience, hope, and self-compassion, you begin to see opportunities instead of obstacles, solutions instead of problems, and growth instead of failure. You begin to become someone who rises rather than someone who collapses under circumstance. It is a slow, deliberate process. Change does not happen in a single day or a single thought. It happens one conscious choice at a time. Notice your mind's patterns, intervene when necessary, and redirect your focus toward what empowers you. Over time, those thoughts will form the blueprint of your character, your choices, and your life. You will begin to realize that what you have repeatedly thought, what you have consistently fed, has quietly transformed you into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable than you once believed possible. Your mind, once a place of struggle, becomes a place of creation. Freedom starts in the mind, long before it shows itself in the world. Too often, we wait for circumstances to change, believing that freedom depends on what others do, on what life delivers, or on what we have yet to achieve. But real freedom is not granted by external events. It begins when you refuse to allow your mind to chain you to fear, resentment, or self-doubt. The moment you release thoughts that confine you, even slightly, you take a step into a larger, more expansive life. Many of us carry invisible shackles made from expectations, guilt, and old stories. We replay conversations, relive mistakes, and weigh ourselves down with judgments, sometimes our own, sometimes borrowed from others. These chains are subtle, but they are heavy. They limit creativity, joy, and the courage to take risks. They tell us we must wait for permission to feel alive or worthy, yet the mind has the power to unlock these chains the instant we choose to question them. Freedom in thought begins with awareness. Notice the patterns that keep you small. Listen to the voices that say you are not enough, that your dreams are too big, that happiness is reserved for someone else. These voices are not reality. They are echoes of fear. You do not have to obey them. You can acknowledge them without letting them decide your path. Every time you catch yourself believing a limiting thought and deliberately refuse to follow it, you practice freedom. Letting go of limiting thoughts is not always easy. The mind resists because confinement feels familiar. Safety is often confused with restriction. You may feel anxiety when you allow yourself to think differently, to imagine something greater, to hope in ways you haven't before. That anxiety is proof that you are stepping out of old patterns, proof that the mind is learning a new rhythm. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing freedom in spite of it. When your mind begins to taste freedom, your life begins to reflect it. Decisions come with clarity rather than hesitation. Relationships feel lighter because you are no longer trapped in past resentments or self-imposed limitations. Opportunities appear because you are willing to see them instead of dismissing them as impossible. Creativity, joy, and peace are no longer distant goals. They are present companions. Freedom in thought creates a fertile ground where life can grow in ways you could not have forced or planned. This freedom also means forgiving yourself for carrying chains for so long. You may regret the time spent trapped in limiting thinking, but regret is not necessary. Every moment you have struggled has also taught you the value of liberation. Each step toward freeing your mind is a declaration. You will no longer be imprisoned by fear, by doubt, or by what you imagine others think of you. You are choosing your inner life as the foundation for your outer life. Freedom is both radical and ordinary. It is radical because it requires breaking old habits of thought. It is ordinary because every small choice to let go, to question, and to believe in yourself becomes a practice of liberation. Over time, these choices accumulate. They transform your perception, your behavior, and your experience. And then, quietly, naturally, the world around you begins to reflect the freedom you have already claimed in your mind. When the mind is free, life itself cannot help but follow.